Today, we're going to take a look at some discs that were included with issues from the magazine Maximum PC, because what else am I supposed to do with these things? I have all the CDs from 2011, except for June. That one wasn't reading correctly. I was not able to get any data off of it. The CDs mostly contain open source or freeware tools for general use consumers, but I think it's kind of interesting. 2011 was 12 years ago at the time of recording this, and a decent amount of the software shown in this video is still maintained and updated to this day. For checking out the contents of the disks, I'm going to be using a virtualized Windows 7 environment with VirtualBox. I don't want to deal with the clutter of installing a whole bunch of stuff onto my main Windows 11 PC, and it kinda makes more sense from the perspective of time traveling back to 2011 when Windows 7 was still in support, and it was actually the main version of Windows to use at the time. It's wild to think about, since Windows 8 wasn't even out yet. That came out in October 2012. For running the CDs on the VM, I converted them all to ISO files using ImageBurn, which I got from Ninite.com. Using them this way, I'm able to load the disk images easily within the VM, as opposed to constantly removing and inserting CDs. So let's get to it. Here's a quick look at the interface of each disk. They have different tabs for applications, utilities, games, podcast episodes, and sometimes donating computing power to research products, things like that. There's also weirder ones every now and then, like this sketchy looking all-in-one PC repair software thing. It doesn't even have an install button, it's just a link to the website. So as far as checking out the software goes, I'm just going to pick some out at random for the most part. If we went disc by disc, we would be covering a lot of the same ground. I doubt that Notepad++ or MediaMonkey changed too much each month, but boy, those two are just about on every one of these discs. So up first we have Audacity. It is a free and open source program which you can use for editing audio, and it's pretty good. I use it all the time myself. Obviously a more up-to-date version of it, but it's pretty solid. You can do stuff like changing the pitch of stuff, changing the amplitude, a whole bunch of stuff you can do with this pretty handy little tool. Up next is Paint.net. It is a pretty well-featured digital image manipulation program. Much like the name says, it is like Microsoft Paint, but with a bunch more stuff on there. So there's actual adjustments, effects, layering, transparency, a whole bunch of stuff in this program that is not in the regular version of Paint. And it's pretty solid for general use image editing. I'm creating a little text document to try out our next program called Eraser, which is a file deleting program, which you can actually pick how many passes it does over the deleted file so it can't be recovered in any way. This would be better than the recycle bin in the sense of actually deleting that data and making sure it can't be recovered in any way. And there goes the file. Notepad++ is our next application. It is a handy open source text editor which is mostly based around programming. It has tabs, specific visual options and assistance for different languages, encoding options, and a whole lot more. NoMeter or Rainmeter, maybe NewMeter, appears to be a widget tool thing which shows some basic statistics and visuals for your desktop. I'm sure it could be customized in some different ways, but I've personally never been super into things like this, so I'll just leave it like it is. Apparently this one's still updated, which is actually true for a lot of the things I've covered already. There are newer versions for many of these tools. Angband is an ASCII graphics dungeon crawler from what I can see. You fight evil things like boil-covered witches, village idiots, but be cautious of Farmer Maggot's dog Fang because it got me good and I died. I love little games like this. It's just so much fun to walk around these little dungeons and you have to use your imagination to actually try to think of what's going on. It's really cool. Up next we have GIMP. It's the same vibe as Paint.net as far as image editing and creation goes. There's a whole variety of different effects and patterns and stuff to create beautiful images with. You can really go wild on the canvas. The world is your oyster. LibreOffice is an open source project that is essentially aiming to be an alternative to the Microsoft Office range of products. It can come in handy sometimes for basic text document creation, spreadsheet creation, presentations. Pretty cool overall. And it's free, so take that, Microsoft.
Recover is a file restoration program. I'm doing a quick scan to see if the eraser file is still on there, and Recover apparently did not see it. That probably means it's long gone. As a fun anecdote, one time when I was in college, someone took a flash drive from me and I eventually stumbled onto it again in the same classroom. The person tried to claim it was theirs, but all of my data was gone from it. So I used Recover and was able to find some of my older files, which proved that it was mine, and I kept it after that. Speccy seems to be a straightforward computer specifications tool, showing menus for the operating system, CPU, RAM, motherboard, hard drives, stuff like that.
Time for another game. This time it's called GL Tron. It's a 3D Tron clone, and it's pretty fun. Unfortunately, I ran into some issues with the audio and graphics, but that probably stems mostly from the virtualization I'm doing, but it's worth checking out if you have some free time. It's pretty fun. Up next, we have Media Monkey. I remember using this back in high school when I had an iPhone without a cellular plan to basically turn it into an iPod with a whole bunch of tracks and albums that I quote-unquote acquired. It's stacked with a whole bunch of media management features and playback options. Q10 is a super basic text editor, which is kind of fun. According to the website that still hosts it, the typewriter sound is from the 2001 movie Amelie. If you are interested in how Microsoft Windows works, you have most likely already heard of sysinternals before, but it's basically a set of utilities developed by Mark Russinovich back in 1996 and has been updated since then. The current application we're taking a look at right now is called Process Explorer, which shows a whole bunch of information about all the processes currently running on the operating system. In this quick example, I'm going to start Windows Media Player, and you can view more details about it, and you can restart and kill the task. The whole sysinternal suite of tools is really neat. It's really interesting to see how it all works. It can also be useful for troubleshooting or finding backdoors to stuff or seeing how DRM works. It's a really handy troubleshooting tool for a whole bunch of stuff. Some podcast episodes are included in every disc as well, which is kind of cool. From what I can see, this podcast series ended on episode 244 back in 2016. At least, that's the last one I can see on their YouTube page. Here are some of the comments from that last video they uploaded. It's kind of sad. Let's take a look at HashCalc. Now, if you weren't one of the cool kids back in school that skipped class to mess around with hashes, here's a quick rundown on what they were doing in the backseat of their mom's 1999 Volkswagen Jetta. In simple terms, a file gets run through a mathematical algorithm, and the resulting number, or string, it's numbers and letters and stuff, that's called the calculated hash. There are different algorithms that can be ran and generate different strings, but the raw data doesn't lie. If the file contents are slightly different, it will generate a totally different calculated value. This can be used to verify downloads from official sources to reduce the chance of downloading maliciously altered files or executables. For this example, I have the Ubuntu releases website pulled up, and it shows the values right there. So you would download the file, run it through a HashCalc program or just a command line program with the same algorithm. And if you get the same number, that means that, hey, the file is good. It's the exact same thing that the developers have on their end, so it's all good. Up next is Ifran View, which is a photo and video viewing application. There are some built-in tools for basic editing as well. I put some old photos on here. Take a look at that bug. If you're ever going through the state of Utah, try to drop by the Coral Pink Sand Dunes State Park. It's a pretty cool place. That's where I took this picture. Next, we have the Great Internet Mersenne Prime Search, or GIMPS. Now, I'm not a mathematician, so I can't explain exactly how it crunches the numbers, but my CPU maxed out at 100% while running this mathematical super formula equation thing. It could be a pretty solid way to test out your computer's cooling systems under a heavy load. But the people on this site aren't playing around. They love their prime numbers, and as far as I'm concerned, more power to them. CCleaner. This one is a good example of vintage software that, in my opinion, isn't relevant anymore. I can't remember the last time I had any major Windows 10 issues that the default file system checking tool couldn't fix. Not only that, but modern data storage options are, generally speaking, faster and larger today than they were 10 years ago. A few hundred megabytes here and there of cached data isn't what it used to be, so I don't see myself installing this or any modern version of it anytime soon. Greenshot. Yeah, sure, Windows has the snipping tool and snip and sketch built in, but there's still something about the amount of features that Greenshot has that I still prefer it. It comes in handy when making any kind of documentation with the ability to highlight, draw circles, add arrows, all sorts of stuff. I'm a big fan of this one. CPU-Z is a tool that is used to give a whole bunch of information about your CPU, which brand it is, the specification, core speeds, cache data, and a whole bunch of other stuff is on there too. This can be useful for verifying that a CPU you bought is legitimate and operates at the same speeds that the manufacturer said it would. It can also be used for troubleshooting issues that could be related to overheating and other stuff like that. Ultimate Windows Tweaker seems to be a program that acts as a graphical interface for a whole bunch of registry changes that can improve the user experience. There's a bunch of different personalization options in here, along with numerous other tweaks. I don't think I would ever use this, but if you cared that much about tweaking Windows 7 at the time, I guess you can use this. One of these CDs came with an old version of Cave Story, which is pretty neat. There's an updated version on Steam. I never personally played it before, but I've heard good things about it. Watch out for these spikes, they can kill you. NetHack is another ASCII dungeon crawler. I created a character named Jimbo and killed some newts. It's another one of those games that's pretty fun. Get to explore, grab loot, all the sorts of usual dungeon crawlery stuff. There's this program called Miro, I don't know how you say it, which seems to be a media player that connects with a whole bunch of internet services, but many of these are no longer available. It's interesting to see which ones are still relatively functional versus the ones that don't work at all. Revo Uninstaller is another application which you can use to remove programs. It does some other things as well, but I personally don't see this one being super useful. I always just trusted the regular Microsoft remove thing, or just going in there and deleting the files manually myself. But that's just me, I don't know. WinDirStat is a disk usage visualizer, similar to Space Sniffer. I really like the sheeny metallic texture on the graphical part of the screen. This can come in handy when clearing up space on a full disk. Stickies. This is a sticky note app, which you can use to pin stuff above other windows. Notes like, take out the trash, feed your dog, all that kind of fun stuff. The last game that we're going to take a look at is The Battle for Wesnoth. Now, I don't really know what the hell's going on here, but it looks like a turn-based strategy game for the most part. I'm not one for elf and gnome mage conflict, but this game probably has that in spades. The last thing that we're going to take a look at is called NewCash. It looks to be like a fully featured transactional financial accounting software bundle thing. It seems functional to me for the most part, but I don't really know what I'm doing with it. I've never ran a business or transacted before in my life in a way that is in the open source environment, but it looks like it's all here, and yeah, it's kind of, that's about it. I don't know much about the financial world or whatever. After going through all these CDs, it got me thinking. Earlier, I had mentioned Ninite for installing ImageBurn. That website has the option of selecting multiple applications and installing them from one exe file. Many of the applications had earlier versions on these CDs. The difference in how software gets released and how end users acquire that software has really changed with the ongoing proliferation of internet availability. If someone is interested in technology, chances are they already have the internet to download software directly. While the CDs that came with the magazines are definitely cool in their own way, the process is very dated if you actually wanted to use the software in an up-to-date way. Most PCs and laptops don't even come with CD drives anymore. I had to use one of these DVD to USB drives just to make this video in the first place. But yeah, that about covers what I can for Maximum PC. Their last physical issue came out in April 2023. The downfall of print media is an entirely different topic that I don't really want to get into for this video, but it is kind of cool, or I guess noteworthy, to see how technology has changed even from stuff that's relatively recent from 2011. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and there should be more stuff whenever it comes out, probably the 1st of next month. You be the judge.